since I'm chasing a vibration, I'm gonna go ahead and replace the U-joints. So I'm just gonna give her a little spray here so it slides in nice. Oh yeah, slides in nice, baby. But that's mostly just to get it started. You could tap them in and tap them out. I've done it before. But today we're gonna be using this ball joint press. I'm a little bit worried about that. Ripped open, and I haven't even opened it yet. MagnaFlow glass pack. These are advertised to be stainless steel. On Amazon, and they lied. It's false advertising. They're not stainless steel. But I'm not very happy about those. They're just aluminized. There's no paint on them. If I had known that they weren't stainless, I probably wouldn't have ordered them. I'm gonna go ahead and replace the U-joints. So these are for 95 Firebird, but I don't really think it matters. Made in Mexico. Got some stainless steel exhaust clamps. Ooh, shiny. I'm gonna go ahead and put the car in neutral. Neutral, and then I'll shut the key off. So there's going to be 4 bolts holding the drive shaft on and 2 of these caps here. So I'm just going to go ahead and spin them off with a 7/16 or 11 millimeter. Okay, I got the drive shaft out of the Firebird. These are the original U-joints, I'm quite certain of it. These are what they call inside clip. So they don't have a clip on the outside. They're supposed to have a clip on the inside. But the U-joint is fine this way. There's a cross. So there's bearings on this axis, and there's another set of bearings on this axis, needle bearings. So that way is nice and smooth, but up and down is really tight, and there's a loose and a tight and a loose and a tight. So that U-joint is not very good. One cross is okay, but both are really important. So this one here, I believe it's a factory U-joint because there's no inside clips. Well, technically there is, but there's not. There is on this style, but these are the factory ones. They've never been changed. And from factory, they have these little nipples. See this little nipple here? It's Teflon baked. So that these are actually Teflon baked, these caps. And they're pressed in and Teflon baked in. Feels like it's gonna rain any minute. It wouldn't be a Mr. John video if it didn't rain or snow or something, would it? Or if I didn't complain about the weather at least once. So I'm just going to make sure that this cap is centered here so it can pass through. And put a little bit of pressure on it. I'm going to try the impact gun eventually. Just want to put a little bit of pressure on it right now so it doesn't move. I don't want to get it too hot. but I do want to heat up those Teflon areas. You can see the Teflon coming out, cooking out, like coming out like spaghetti, some type of a worm, like those fireworks worms. And once you see that Teflon coming out, you don't have to get it too much hotter. All right, let's hope this impact will do it. I've got it on set on 2 out of 3. There she goes. Put a lot of pressure on it and give it a swat with a hammer. Oh, there she goes. They're really in there. They're pressed in there pretty good, especially the factory Teflon one. Wow, there she goes. She's out. I'm gonna take this clamp away for a minute, just for a second, and you should be able to remove this cap on this side after it comes through. There goes all the needle bearings. Don't do that like me. Try not to spill, especially the new one. The new one is important. You don't want to spill the needles out like that. That's a bad day. You don't want to be counting needle bearings and trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And if you're gonna use a hammer, make sure there's something under the yoke, not the shaft. The shaft is just, you don't want to put a dent in the shaft. So make sure your shaft is, if you're gonna tap on anything, make sure it's sitting on the yoke. So you're hitting on this cast yoke, if anything. And I'm just gonna tap it to get it started back in the hole again, because we have to go back through again. Well, they certainly pass through a lot easier after the Teflon is cooked, after the first break. But that first initial break is not easy. Okay, so passed it through both directions. There's the cap. Both caps are off now. And then you just wrangle this sucker out of here, like that. And there's your old U-joint, pretty much baked. Now taking the front apart is going to be pretty much the same, only instead of doing one axis, you have to do 2 axis. So there's a cross this way and cross this way, and we're going to have to knock both of them out. But I think that's hot enough. Less is more. That's one of my favorite sayings, less is more. So I don't want to give it too much. This way. Put lots of pressure on it. Oh, there it goes. There she goes. Wow, that literally just shot off like a freaking shotgun. Okay, that one just self-ejected, probably from the heat. Right on. So I'm just gonna line it back up again and tap it back home. I'm not hitting on the shaft, I'm hitting on the yoke. And I've got a piece of wood there too, which is a little bit soft, not too soft. and I'm not really smacking on it. I'm not really trying to mess anything up. I'm just giving it taps. I'll let the weight do the work. This is like a 3-pound sledge, or sorry, a 3-pound ball peen. There she goes. Just trying to keep it lined up. And she's almost out of there. That's about it. Yeah. She goes. There's the cap. There's the yoke. There's the shaft. So I'll have to do it once more. I'll have to heat this up, press it out. I'll try not to heat this one up as much. Maybe I'll just heat it a little bit because there's a rubber damper. In this yoke, built into this yoke. You can see like a ring of Teflon on the cap of the U-joint, and you can see the way it cooked out. Look at the way it cooked out, like fibers. Isn't that weird? And I'll just have to go back with it, and Bob's your uncle. This very last one, I've just been tapping it out with a hammer. That's the way I did it on the 87, in a vise with some sockets and a hammer. You can use a drift to fit in that hole so you're not banging on anything. And I just centered it over something, like there's a nice hole here, so I just centered it over that hole. I've been trying to be very careful because I don't want to mess up the yoke here. You really don't want to mess up your yokes. So I don't want to hit that with the hammer. The best way is with a drift or a socket that'll fit inside of there. But you can see that it is coming. Okay, I got a 19mm socket, and I'm gonna try tapping on that just to show you that you don't need a press necessarily. I've done it several times before without a press. You want to locate this this cap so it can fall through. So you want to set it over an edge or through a hole, but you definitely want to be hitting on something solid. You want to hit nice and straight. Take your time. I know sometimes you really have to hit it hard just to break them loose, but take your time and try not to damage anything. I'm just holding it over the edge of the vise, and pretty much just using it for an anvil. And you can see it's coming out. I think it is out, actually. Yeah, it is. So then pull your cap off. This is the old U-joint, so I'm not too worried about it, but you want to be careful with those needle bearings. When I'm installing a new U-joint, let's say this is the new one. It's not, it's obviously not, but I will hold the caps vertical, like straight up and down. And when I take the new U-joints apart, I'll hold it straight up and down, and I'll twist a little bit, so I'll turn it. This one doesn't want to turn because the grease, it's all dry in there, so I'll just turn a little bit and pull it apart. And most of the time the needles will stay glued to the side with grease. And when I'm putting it back together, I'll try to do the same thing. I'll try to hold it straight up and down, give it a little bit of a twist, and you do not want to lose track of any needle bearings on the new U-joint. Okay, so after we took the U-joints out, we have basically a shaft with no U-joints. I found some 180 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to clean up the inside here. I don't want to remove any good material. because you want your U-joint to fit nice and tight in there. That's why they're pressed in. They're pressed in there for a reason, so they're nice and tight. Here's the new U-joint Moog. It's stamped. It doesn't say made in USA on it, but anyway, it's stamped. And it comes with inside clips and a grease fitting or Zerk fitting. You can hold it straight up and down, give it a little rotation, and there it is. It's pre-greased. It's pretty greasy there, but it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit extra grease in it when you put it together. So I'm gonna hold it straight up and down, give it a little rotation. Be very careful and set this somewhere. And on the opposite side, I'll do the same thing. Hold it straight up and down, give it a little rotation. Make sure all the pins are good and straight, and make sure everything's in place. Then I'll take the joint and I can slip it in there now with no caps. Be careful you don't overlay them. I almost just overlaid them. So put this on here. All right, now I'm gonna slide it in. I'm gonna be careful, try not to get any dirt in the bearing surface here. I don't want any dirt riding in the needles, so I'll be very careful. I did wipe them out, I think. Maybe I'll just wipe them out once more, just for peace of mind. Yuck. Oh yeah. So just give her one more wipe down for peace of mind. I'm gonna drop this in carefully. It's a good idea to have your grease fitting, if you want it pointed towards the front or the back. I like to have it pointed I like to have them pointed inwards, so they're accessible with the grease gun, rather than pointing towards the transmission or towards the rear end. So I'll turn this around. Be very careful and just drop it in there just like that. I'll take this cap here and I'll get it started. I'm gonna keep it pointed down, same as previously. Actually, I'm gonna double check those needle bearings. It's always a good idea to double check the needle bearings, make sure they're all in there straight and true, not piled up. Give it a little rotation and keep it centered true. And then I'm gonna slowly bring the whole thing up. I don't want to pull up on the cross because I'll pull it out of the needles. So I'm just gonna slowly, and then I'll just set it on here for a second. Just go easy, try not to dent the corners, try to make it straight and true if you can. But that's mostly just to get it started. You could tap them in and tap them out. I've done it before. But today we're gonna be using this ball joint press. I'm gonna be careful not to knock it out of the needles because it's perfectly in the needles right now. I don't know if perfect is a good word, but I'm gonna be careful with it if I can. And that's pretty darn close. And I'm just gonna torque it. It'd be easier if this was, if I had a helper or something to hold it a little bit, to torque it. There she goes. And I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. This has the inside clips, so I'm gonna go past the inside clip. I try to do it for you guys. It's a bit of a struggle doing it by yourself like this though. The struggle is real, guys. The struggle is real. I'm gonna try the impact gun. I'm hoping that with the impact gun this clamp won't move. The clamp seems to be moving on that end there, so maybe it'll stay still this way. Yay, it's working. Here's the groove for the inside clip there. So you would put the inside clip in that groove and snap it in, and we will do that. But I'm gonna go a little bit past. I'm gonna go a little bit further so I can get the other cap on. Okay, so she's in there past further than it needs to be, but that allows me to work here because I want the needles to go straight. I can pull it out a little bit if I want out of these other needles, but I'd like to keep everything in there if I can. Once again, I'm gonna go like straight up and down or vice versa. I think I'm gonna start like this because it's more controllable this way. Double check the needle bearings and make sure everything is good there. Pull the U-joint up just a little bit. Turn the cap a little bit. You got everything lined up good. You got your cap started. You think all your needles are nice and straight. Just tap it carefully or start pressing it. Well, there she is. I got one in, and I got the clips in. So I made this tool here, and it just goes over like that, and allows me to press on the cross. This is the 95 Firebird yoke, and I noticed that it's actually been cut, and somebody did a terrible job of trying to bevel it off, and it's really not good. So I went looking to see if I could find one, another yoke, slip yoke, and I found this is the original one out of the 83, and it's in really good condition. And it doesn't have the damper on it, but you can see it's supposed to be like a hair longer. It's pretty much the same thing, just without the damper. And this one has never been chopped. This one's nice, just the way it should be. So I cleaned it up a little bit with some sandpaper, and yeah, just cleaned her up a little bit there. And I gave a quick wipe out in these eyelets of the ears. So if you push on this ear with the ball joint press, the thrust caps, or the thrust on the caps, sometimes they get tight from pressing on each other. So if you get it installed, you can press on the cross. I just used a hammer and put it on the anvil. Make sure you're not hitting on the tube. So I've got the anvil resting on the yoke here, and I just give it a tap with the hammer with this nifty homemade tool, and line her up where I think I want it and give her a swat. I'm not afraid to give it a good smack, as long as you're not hitting on the tube, as long as you're supporting the yoke and whatnot. So that sometimes if there's pressure, that can free it up, and you can turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. I just give it one good smack there, and everything's nice and fluid. I got the clips in on both sides there. So that one is good to go, and it will bolt into the rear end. I'll flip it around here. This one's going to be a little more complicated because I have to assemble the yoke, the slip yoke as well. I'll clean these up a little bit, and I'm going to check the grease fitting and make sure it's pointed where I can access it, or whichever way you want it. I'm gonna point it towards the front, so I should be able to grease it later without removing the shaft, hopefully, if I need to, if need be. So I'm gonna hold this down so the needles don't fall out and they don't tip over. Give it a little twist. Carefully set the cap down. Do the same thing on the opposite side, 180 degrees opposite, and check the needles. Be very careful. So I've got the cross here like this, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start putting it together, I suppose. I've got the clamp here. I'm just gonna drop this in, make sure my grease fitting is pointed the right way. Where are you? There you are. Drop this in here carefully, and then I'll get the caps ready and the press ready. Okay, so I put these clips on these caps here because they will locate the center of the yoke on the rear end. I've put the grease fittings in and I've tightened them up with a 8mm. Just snug them up by hand. They're pipe thread, so they're tapered fit. So snug those down, got the new U-joints in, all the clips are in, everything looks pretty good considering I just Joe Blow that has no clue what he's doing, more or less. Everything turned out pretty good considering what I have to work with. So I was chasing a vibration, and that's why I took the wheels off. What did I find? I found a bunch of dried out U-joints, and one of them was especially cooked, and it had yeah, that one there. You can see the dry skipping spots on it. So one of them had like tight and loose spots in it. I can't remember which one. Actually, I think they both did on one cross or the other. But all it takes is one cap. If you get one cap bad or not enough grease, those are the original ones. Those are the original U-joints. No grease in there whatsoever. Well, maybe a little bit, but yeah, they're pretty much cooked. I can tell they're the original ones because they're Tefloned in and there's no clips. So the original ones have no clips. These, after they've been replaced, they look like this. They'll have clips on them. Magical Fluke. This grease fitting is exactly 180 degrees opposite of this one. Magical Fluke. So if I go 180 degrees, it should be right there. Yep, there it is. Magical Fluke. So if there's any balance on this side or this side from a tiny little grease fitting, it's going to be opposite sine wave over here. So they're 180 degrees out of sync, or yeah, basically just in case, just for balancing, just in case. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in the car. This was the old yoke. I remember I changed yokes and because I was chasing a vibration. So I don't know what's going on with that, but anyway, the damper was starting to crack on it. It's all chamfered and it's not even cut straight. So that could be causing a vibration if there's a little more weight on this side, or if it's cut on an angle, there could be more weight on one side. The U-joints could definitely be causing a vibration. I had to double check the spacers and make sure they were turning true, and decided to replace the U-joints. So I'm just going to give her a little spray here so it slides in nice. Oh yeah, slides in nice, baby. So I know this video is long, and I know you're just you're just in a hurry to just slide it in. I know you just want to stick it in and just give her. But I tried to take my time a little bit with this. It's a little bit tedious. I'm not a professional. I don't have really a lot of professional tools or anything, but I do have a ball joint press and yeah, and a hammer. So I got them in, and everything seems good, and I'll go ahead and put that in the car. Well, I gave her a paint job, so I'm just gonna bolt her back in and see what kind of difference. That should make a big difference. The yoke is a lot better here because there is a little bit, it is out a little bit, so you have to push it in to get it out of the rear end, and you have to pull it out a little bit to get it back in the rear end again. So I'm glad that I've changed the yoke.